Dr. Laura Froyen, and I've been running around today with clients, and then after this, I'm helping my friend Jen Lumenlund from the Your Parenting Mojo podcast on her awesome webinar on taming your triggers. And so this one is going to be a little bit short and brief, but I have some really good information to share with you today about how to help our kids when they are showing up in our lives with physical aggression. So what to do when they are hitting, kicking, biting, those types of things. And so I was talking with a few moms in the parenting groups that I help out with, and this is something that happens a lot with little kids, especially when you have kids kind of under the age of like 8 or so, when their impulse controls are not so great. They haven't really fully come online yet, and they have big feelings, and those big feelings come out as hits and kicks and bites and sometimes even spitting, those types of things. And so I was talking with quite a few moms. I asked if this was something that they struggled with and wanted to know more about, and the answer was a resounding yes. It's so hard to know what to do when your kiddo is either hitting a friend or a sibling, or hitting you or your partner. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So as you're hopping in, say hello. Let me know that you're here and that you're hearing this. I always like knowing who is here with me, and Facebook doesn't always tell me. I can see how many people are here with me, but I don't always know who's here with me. If you have a question on the topic that we're talking about today, or something that gets kind of triggered by what we're talking about, please always let me know what the question is. I'm happy to interrupt what we're doing and answer those. So if that happens, go ahead and ask a question, and let's get started. Okay, so today's talk is all about what to do when our kids hit or kick or pinch or bite, those types of kind of physical aggression behaviors. And I know that they're a huge trigger for parents for a lot of different reasons. But so we're going to, in the process of this talk today, we're going to be talking about how to shift our reaction to them and where to channel our energies in order to help kids solve this problem. So biting, hitting, kicking, screaming, pinching, all of those things, all those kind of manifestations of physical aggression in kids can be a huge trigger for parents. A lot of that has to do with how we feel responsible for our kids' behaviors. We see our kids' behaviors as being a reflection on us. There's a huge amount of social pressure on us to have well-behaved kids. And we start telling ourselves a story about our kids when they start displaying some of these physically aggressive behaviors. We tell ourselves things like, my kid is mean, my kid is bad, this behavior is bad, I must be a bad parent, why won't he stop this, why can't she just keep her hands to herself, I know she knows how to do this, why can't she just do it, or she did it last week, she was fine, why is she hitting her friends all of a sudden now? We start kind of getting in our heads and telling ourselves stories about what's happening. And so the first thing that is so important when our kids hit, when they show signs of physical aggression, it's so important for us to take a deep breath and really center ourselves, really ground ourselves in the present, and mindfully let go of those stories. Those stories are there for various reasons, but they don't help us in the moment with our kids. In fact, they often take us down paths that have nothing to do with what's really going on, and they derail us from really being able to intentionally and compassionately handle the situation that's unfolding in front of us. So that's kind of the broad picture. If you notice yourselves getting sucked into a story or a narrative about what's happening with your kids' behavior, really you've got to, in the moment, set that aside to look at later. but not in the moment with your kid. So we're the grown-ups, we've got to self-regulate for ourselves, and we've got to stay calm so that we can share that calm with our kids. If they're getting aggressive and they're up here and we try to come up on top of them with our own yelling and our own big feelings and our own big voices, we get stuck in a ladder where then they climb on top of us and then we have to get louder. What we need to come in under. We need to be calm. We need to regulate ourselves so that they can regulate themselves. We need to share our self-regulation with them and come in underneath with our response that's lower than theirs. Sometimes that's hard, and sometimes that means you need to take a break. If you have multiple kids and one's getting hurt, and you can scoop up the other kids, take them with you while everybody calms down, while the kid who's maybe having a hard time is in a safe place where no one's getting hurt, so that you can be calm and be with them. So owning the responsibility for our own stuff is super important. I'm also going to ask you to take on a lot of responsibility for being a detective and looking beyond the behaviors. So what's really going on with your kids when they are showing these signs of physical aggression, when they're showing up with hitting, kicking, biting? I want to help you get clear on what's going on in their bodies and in their brains and why those responses are happening. So when a kid is kicking, hitting, biting, pinching, all of those things, those tend to be the fight part of a fight or flight response. So we all have our stress response systems in our body that are looking for threats. And when we feel threatened, sometimes we go into a place where we are our fight or flight or freeze response system is triggered. And fighting, it shows up like biting, hitting, pinching. That's oftentimes when this is happening, the part of our kids' brains that controls their, is responsible for impulse control and executive functioning, that part, and emotion regulation, that part of the brain during the fight, flight, or freeze response is completely offline. And they are in their animal brain, and they are kind of responding, they're just kind of reacting intuitively and instinctively and impulsively. So when we see hitting, kicking, pinching, biting, those types of things, we have to understand that this is a kid who is at the end of their rope. A hitting kid is a hurting kid most of the time. They, if they could stop themselves, they absolutely would. Oftentimes when I say that, parents come back with me, well, they have stopped themselves. They can stop themselves. I've seen them do it. And that's true. That might be true that in 8 times out of 10, they can stop themselves. But this time, in this moment when it's happening, they can't. See, because kids don't want to be hitting and hurting. They know it hurts. They know they're not supposed to do it. They know that it disrupts connection and relationships with their friends or with their siblings or with their parents. They don't want to be doing this. If they had another option, another choice, they would totally be doing it. But a kid who's hitting or kicking or biting is often out of choices at this point in time. And so in the moment when that's happening, it is not our job to teach or to preach. We need to set the teaching and the preaching to the side. That can happen later. In the moment, our only job is to get them regulated. Because kicking and hitting and punching and biting, those are a sign that a kid is out of options and doesn't know what to do and isn't able to stop themselves, that they are feeling some big emotions, that they're having some hard feelings, and they don't know what to do with them, and they're doing the best they can. They're doing what they know how to do, which is hit, bite, kick, pinch, those types of things. So we need to see these behaviors as unskilled attempts to solve a problem by a child who's triggered and in fight, flight, or freeze, right? And so in the moment, our job is to soothe and to calm them. We can't do that if we are aroused ourselves, so we've got to stay calm and steady so that they can feel secure and feel like we've got this, and they can calm down too. So that's what's really going on with your kids most of the time when they're hitting and kicking. Now, I know sometimes it can seem like it comes out of the blue, but I think if you were to spend some time carefully observing, you would find out that these behaviors are really indicating or communicating unmet needs for your kids. So beyond understanding that these behaviors are part of a like fight, flight, or freeze response, we also have to understand that there is some underlying need that maybe that's not being met that is resulting in kids getting to this point in time. So if that's happening for you, one, in the moment, you got to get them calmed down, get them soothed, and get their prefrontal cortex back online and working for them and with you. And then you have to start really observing your kids and looking beyond the behavior to what the child is communicating. Kids tell us with their behavior what they need and what they're missing, or what how they need support, and we have to be really good at reading and interpreting their behaviors. Older kids can also tell us verbally what they need and want, but they can't do that when they're in fight or flight, right? So if I have a few scenarios from the parents in my groups. So sometimes this behavior can come out, and I know it does in my house, when parents are engaged in something else. Their attention is elsewhere, like making dinner or working on something, or even just trying to relax and look at your phone or read a book. And kids get into a place where they're hitting or biting, and it seems almost as if they want interaction with us. Sometimes this gets called attention-seeking behaviors. I think of it more as connection-seeking behaviors. They're telling you that they need something from us, that they need our time, they need our attention, that they need our assistance. There's a host of other reasons why hitting and biting happens, especially for older kids. For younger kids, it often has to do with big, hard to handle feelings that they don't know what to do with, and that come out of their body in an impulsive, reactive way. For older kids, it can be a little bit easier, or it can be a little bit more important to find the kind of the earlier reason, so the upstream reason, the reason why this is happening. So maybe they've had a really hard day at school, a friend was mean to them, they've been feeling a lot of kind of emotional turmoil in their bodies, and they get home and their little sister takes their toy, and that's just the last straw. That's it, they can't take anymore, and they hit their little sister. So it has very little to do with the little sister taking the toy. Like, yes, that's super frustrating. It has more to do with kind of what's built up and piled up. And so maybe that kid needs a way to offload the stresses of their day as a part of their like coming home routine, so that they can offload that stress in a positive way rather than having it come out as a hit. So we really have to get to the core of why the hitting is happening. We have to look beyond that behavior and look at what that behavior is communicating to your child. And that's something that I can't do in a general way. There's no one answer for why this happens for each of these kids. This is an individual thing. And we as parents have to get really good at being detectives and observing our kids, and asking our kids too. Once they're verbal, they can help us know what's going on for them and why this is happening. It does not help to ask, why did you hit your sister? They don't know why they hit their sister. I'm talking about asking them things like, what do you need right now? What's going on? How can I help? Those types of things. Okay, and again, if you have questions, please let me know. Okay, so we've talked about kind of what's really going on for these kids and what we need to know about what's going on in order to be able to help them. So we have to understand that most of the time this is a fight, flight, or freeze response, that it's an impulse, and they really need our help in calming their nervous system down, so that they can be the rational, loving, compassionate beings that they are. Because that's their true nature. We know that. We know that kids want to do well. They want to please us. They want to stay connected to the people that they care about, all of those things. So we have to get them back into that state through helping them calm down and soothe. All kids are different. Your kid knows best for what they need in those moments, and we can kind of trust our kids to do that. Now we got to talk about how to respond in the moment to the hit. Okay, so if we think about our kids as having these brains that have these neural pathways that are like ditches, that they're digging ditches in their brains. And every time they get the impulse to hit and they hit, that digs the ditch kind of one level deeper. We have to start helping them stop themselves, stop the hit, and stop digging that ditch for that neural pathway of, I get frustrated, I get the impulse to hit, and I hit. We have to start kind of breaking that ditch, that neural groove is what it's called, that neural pathway, and start getting them onto a different path. So as much as you can, preventing the hit, the bite, or the pinch from happening. So if you have a kid who's in a really hard stage and they are biting a lot as their main coping mechanism for dealing with frustrations or big feelings, you might have to stay really close. During this time, spending a week or two of eating warmed up, meal prepped dinners so that you can stay close with your kids and prevent it over and over and over again, stopping it from happening and helping them exercise those muscles of, choosing a different way to express their dissatisfaction or their frustration, and get that neural groove going in a different direction. So I get the impulse to bite and I stop myself. The wording, I'm going to help you stop yourself, is really helpful. For most kids in the 4 and under range, they are still very other regulated. So when children are born, when they're babies, they are other regulated. And as they move more towards 5 and 6, they become more self-regulated. But young kids need our help and need our help, our guidance in physically regulated. Once you have stopped the hit or the bite or, whatever is the physical aggression from happening, you've stopped it, you prevented it, then that's your moment, not to teach or to preach. This is your moment to build skills or add tools for the toolbox, but through action, through your own behaviors. So you're not telling them, when you bite, that hurts, and you need to do this instead. They know that biting hurts. That's why they did it, right? Because they were mad or frustrated and they wanted to cause pain, not because they're monsters or anything, but because they're animals, they're human beings that make mistakes, and they had an impulse. They had a need, they had a frustration, a big feeling that they didn't know what to do with, and that's how it came out. So they know it hurt, they know that they aren't supposed to do it, they don't need us to tell them that. What they need us to do is to help them calm down. Would you like to snuggle with me? Would you like to go into a quiet place with me? Should we read some stories? I know it really helps you to draw when you're upset. Can we do that together? Those are the types of things you want to do. And it's not that you're telling them, instead of biting, do these things, but you're giving them the experience of engaging some different behaviors to calm their nervous system down. And then once they're calm, that's when you problem solve. But you start with empathy. Wow, that was hard. You had the toy, and then your brother took it, and you didn't like that. You were really mad, and you hit. It must have been really hard. You must have been really mad. So you empathize, you name the feelings that they were having. And for older kids, you often don't have to say nearly so much. They know the names often. And sometimes they just need to have you hear them and hold space for them. And then after that, after they're calm and after they feel completely heard and validated, then you can say, okay, so when someone takes a toy from us, what can we do? And you help them strategize and give them those tools. Now, there's a difference between knowing what to do when you're in your calm, centered brain and being able to do it and access that information when your lid is flipped as a kid, okay? And we all know that. We all experience that as parents too, or as adults, as grown-ups. And so there is a difference in that. And I think it's so important to support our kids in accessing those things in the moment. So if we've problem solved with them outside of the moment, then we stay close and we support them to put that plan into action in the moment. And so that's that's what we do. That's what we have to do. And we have to do it over and over and over and over again until we've hardwired those neural connections. Because right now they're impulsive, and we have to help them kind of exercise that muscle of stopping themselves and getting onto a different path. And they need our help with that. There's something else that we can do too to help with this. In general, we can be kind of in our everyday lives, we can be exercising those self-regulation skills. So we can help them build their impulse control and their executive functioning skills through fun games that we can play with them that let them practice that so that they have more access to it when they are triggered in the moment, or when they are overwhelmed by big emotions. Games like red light and green light are excellent for building the skill of stopping something, of having the impulse and stopping it. So red light, green light is a great game for like the 2 to 4-year-old set. Even my older kids like to play, still like to play red light, green light. And then as kids get older and need to build more complex skills around impulse control and stopping themselves, the game Simon Says is also really helpful, because Simon Says adds this other layer of you are doing what the person says when they give a command in a specific way, but you're stopping yourself from doing it when the command isn't given in a specific way. So Simon Says and red light, green light are both really great for building capacity and building impulse control so that kids have access to those skills in the moment when they're triggered. Okay, so I think that's it. I hope that this was helpful on kind of learning what to do when your kids hit. And I'm just going to give a brief summary right now. So first, understand that when it's happening, that we have to get a control of our own stories and feelings and reactions about it so that we can stay calm. So if you're having any big reactions to the hitting, if it's a trigger for you, you've got to regulate yourself before you can even ever hope of regulating your kid. The next piece is to really understand what's going on for your kid right in that moment when they're hitting. Understand that it's often a fight or flight response, like literally they're fighting because their stress response has been triggered because they perceived a threat. Whether it's a reasonable threat or not isn't up to us. That's their body and that's how they're responding. So understanding that their executive functioning is most likely offline, and if they could stop themselves, they would have. And so really coming from that place of compassion and understanding that they are human and that they're making a mistake and they're still learning. And then also understanding that their behavior is indicating an unmet need. And so really getting good at observing and being a detective on what unmet need is happening here so that you can support them before the lid gets flipped and before they go into fight or flight mode. Okay, so those are the kind of the two things to like frame it, the mindset shifts that need to happen. In the moment, your only job is to calm and soothe and regulate, to get their nervous systems back online. You are not teaching in the moment. They can't learn anyway. You're not preaching in the moment. And you certainly are not punishing them in the moment for having a very human response to big feelings, big, hard feelings. So your only job right then is to get them to calm and soothe, and then once they are calm, you can start helping them practice the skills that they need in their toolbox, so they have access to them later. And you can also help them develop more impulse control and executive functioning by playing fun, lovely executive functioning games like Red Light, Green Light, or Simon Says. Okay, so that's the summary of this talk. All right, so take really good care of your kids and each other and yourself. Bye.